Hey guys, thanks for following us via our company email list. I know it's been a while and I have a lot to say. If throughout the process of speaking in this video, it seems like I am reading something, that is because I am. Though that is not a testament of insincerity or being disingenuous. It is only a matter of making sure that the note cards that I have, not a full script, but simply the bullet points necessary, keep me on track and on topic rather than rambling off into left field somewhere. Okay, so TLDR, Wolven Industries temporarily failed as a company for varying reasons. We're almost entirely up and running again. We are dreadfully sorry for all the delays. Once we finalize the contract with an American PCB supplier, we'll send out the final U-Ray still waiting for repair and delivery. I learned a lot as a tech CEO, and our next project will be a line of home security products. Okay, where we were. Initially, we were in Spain. I started Wolven Industries in the living room of my apartment. I turned my living room into a makeshift physics and engineering lab, and I developed some pretty compact innovational equipment from scratch that allowed me to prototype the first experimental products. Meanwhile, I gained media attention for my efforts as I traveled in and out of England to attend college physics classes. I was accepted for an honors degree program in physics at York through the Open Plus program, and I also attended a small scientific entrepreneurial convention in Rome, Italy. I got myself professional engineering software, namely Autodesk Fusion 360. I built my team remotely, and that was our start. I bootstrapped about 99% of our funds with my marketing firm. I kept my cost of living low to do so, continually reinvesting every bit of cash I earned on the side into the team's salaries, new equipment, new lessons, paying for my college education, and whatever materials I needed to fulfill the first orders. My efforts earned me an honorary Estonian citizenship, and that citizenship is what I used to file Wolven Industries as an official LLC in Europe. And I also subsequently earned a SAM certification to take on government and, most importantly, military contracts for design and engineering. Everything was looking good. We were making excellent progress that I was journaling in both videos and photos along the way. But three things severely held us up as a company. One, my ego. Two, my naive hiring policy. Three, my lack of experience as a tech CEO, which is totally different than being a marketing CEO. My ego inhibited us as a team because the U-Ray was a far more difficult project than I had the actualized potential to develop, right? And actualize is the key word. In other words, if we were to think in video game terms, I was a level 1 tech CEO attempting a level 40 project. Right? And as much as I don't like to admit it, the small amount of media attention that I did receive went to my head. For those who know about the abuse I endured as a child, if you know about the backstory of Wolven Industries, insecurities about all the time I lost as a child made me fall into the ego trap of ignoring my personal limits, being too ambitious with my choice of project to make up for lost time, which was that insecurity was corroding all of my decision making as a tech CEO. All right. In other words, I felt bad that I hadn't started on this path or tapped into my true potential as a physicist earlier in life. Why I did not is understandable, but once the attention I received for Wolven Industries went to my head, I felt like I had to perform for the world, thereby going over the top by taking on a project with a certain level of technological difficulty that was actually beyond my current capabilities at the time. Right. Now, the good thing is I indeed grew the skills necessary to be worthy of the project over time. But there was still that gap of time necessary for me to develop the legitimate skills I needed, considering my chosen leadership style. Now I am that archetypal level 40 tech CEO, capable of taking on level 40 tech projects, right? Not level 100, but I'd say level 40. The version of me who exists now can say with honesty and iron that you know what, here's the vision for this new technology I want to develop. Here's the specific computer programming, PCB design, etc. I know it will need, and I'm giving us a deadline of 3 months or so rather than 3 years to make it a reality. Now, I can say that I am at that level of skill now with the kind of professional equipment and tools I need, the education I need, the environment I need, and so forth. Right? But I didn't start off at the level that I am now. I started off as a level 1 character with big dreams. I eventually grew into a much higher level scientific entrepreneur, and what you guys have been waiting for is that realistic transformation of character to take place. Right? It can't happen overnight. The only issue now is recovering from the consequences of the decisions I made while at the lower level that I was at. Right, so that's the detailed description of how my ego and lack of experience held us back. Now, allow me to get into how my naive hiring policy held us back. In a nutshell, I didn't care so much about culture fitting my employees when I should have. Right? Culture fitting is huge. It's in fact, now I would hire for culture before I would hire for skill, whereas before I started off hiring for skill before culture. I had the common sense to hire for high skill, but I suffered from the naivete required to think people's political affiliations wouldn't really bother anything in the company. Right? In short, we were sabotaged. I allowed us to become sabotaged in varying ways. We had employees screwing around with the design of the URA, deliberately doing things I told them not to do, charging me for work I didn't ask to have done. And why did they do this? It primarily boiled down to politics. Right? I am, despite what I look like, I'm actually very pro-European. I'm very pro-Western, but that's not necessarily synonymous with being pro-white or absolutely pro-white, or that I wouldn't hire a black person for my team or even a pro-black person for my team. I absolutely did hire a diverse team consisting of people from different countries, some of them black. Right? I didn't care about the skin color. I still don't care about the skin color. But what I should have paid more attention to was their political views. Right? Psychographically, psychologically, there are two different kinds of diversity. We could try to hire for skin color, or we could try to hire for intellectual diversity. Right? I didn't care about the skin color. I still don't care about the skin color. But what I should have chosen, what I should have paid more attention to was their political views. Right? Too starkly a difference in political views means we should not have hired them, regardless of what the skin color was or what. In other words, if the content of their character did not match up with the collective content of the company's character, we should not have hired them. All right, so even white, hardcore supporters of, say, BLM, Black Lives Matter, are likely to sabotage my company. And one of them did, actually. They tried to, because they view me as the enemy. Right? They don't compartmentalize the way that I can or the way that I do while assuming the best in everyone's character. Right? We might be, to me, in my mind, we might be opponents over in this arena, but we're friends over in this arena. I can compartmentalize like that. The majority of people in the world cannot. Right? So I basically had a naive hiring policy that led to hiring decisions that let people into my company that set us up for failure in a variety of ways while on a limited budget to work with. All right, but notice how I don't actually blame them like a victim would. All right, I blame myself for allowing that to happen to my company due to my own naivete. All right, which is not going to be the case anymore. Then there was a point at which the UPS literally lost the last pallet of orders that I could afford to invest in, right? And this is why we're going with an American PCB supplier now, before we would an international one, such as the one that we initially contracted in Germany. And I simply did not have the funding to do any more with the company at the time, right? So the sabotage attempts that held us back, that caused different delays in the company. They caused some people to get buggy orders, bugs that we were able to easily track and solve, but shouldn't have been there in the first place and wouldn't have been there in the first place, as well as the last pallet that I could afford to invest in at the time was either lost or stolen, more likely stolen, to prevent that progress from happening. All right, so, all right, especially not with all the, right, I just couldn't advance the company forward at that point. I had no other choice but to pause and lay off some people with the full intent of hiring them back, which I've done. But at the time, I hit a brick wall, right? Especially not with all the unexpected expenses I ran into while moving to Alaska. Right, so the plan was always to eventually move to Alaska, all right, and I followed through. Here I am in Alaska, but it had been the first time I had set foot on American soil in over 10 years. Right, so this is the whole backstory of the company, me traveling the world, and you see the photos, that's all true. Right, so I really have traveled the world for about 15 consecutive years. 4 of that being in the military, leaving about 11 estimated, roughly 11 years, making it 15 total traveling the world. So I had taxes to pay that had been accruing that entire time I had been traveling the world. So I got in minor trouble with the IRS. And the reason why I say minor is because they didn't send me to prison or anything like that. It was just, hey, you better do this or we will send you to prison. Having to pay back a ton of money that further drained the capital and delayed the recovery of the company, right? So I wasn't sent to jail or anything like that because the IRS knew I wasn't willfully trying to avoid taxes. It was just due to a misunderstanding of how taxes would work for me in my individual case while I traveled the world. Because usually you think if you're traveling the world, if you're living in a different country, why would you pay American taxes, right? So that's where the misunderstanding occurred. Remember, I was stuck in China. I was making $600 per month. Right, only $600 per month, right, as an English teacher, which is actually upper middle class in China. $600 per month American is not bad money in that country, but it's far below the poverty level in the West, right? It's great in one country, horrible in another country, being as though the Chinese yuan was worth 6 times less than the American dollar at the time. So in order to build my first company so as to generate enough, being my marketing firm, so as to generate enough income to leave the economic trap and return to the West, I would have had to give a Chinese national 51% of my company, which I was absolutely not about to do. So I built my marketing company in secret, outsmarting the national Chinese firewall to do so, and as an American company. So legally, I was running an American sole proprietorship while living overseas, using my American bank account instead of my Chinese one to evade Chinese governmental oppression. Right. All the money I made, however, was to go to the American government. Had to go to somebody, right? But throughout the process of traveling from one country to the next, there was a miscommunication and misunderstanding of the laws. Especially since for the vast majority of time that I was living in Spain, we are and have been paying Spanish taxes. So I thought, why pay double taxes, right? But it's, right. It appears that there was taxes I owed for one thing, but not for another. Right? It was complex and complicated, right? So when I finally came back to America, I was smacked in the face by the IRS with a huge bill that had been accruing for over 10 years. All right. Thankfully, though, I was able to work everything out with the IRS. All right, I didn't get sent to prison or anything like that. I got on a payment plan, and that's all squared away. Right? So all of that segues into where we are now. Where are we now? Where we are now. Right? I am actively replenishing the working capital of Wolven Industries, and it's coming back quickly. Right? I am working around the clock for my marketing firm to provide for my family while simultaneously rebuilding the funds of the company as would be necessary to try again with more wisdom and my new level of physics and engineering skill. As you can probably tell by the quality of this very video and my photos of the laboratory I've built here in Alaska, I'm genuinely on a whole other level of capability now, both as a scientist and as a CEO. Right. Many thanks to my core development team, namely Abel and Andy. They've watched me grow as a person and teammate over the past 3 years. They didn't abandon me during my most vulnerable moments. They forgave me for my flaws as a person, as I've been learning along the way. And all we need to finish fulfilling the last orders that need to go out for the U-Ray is simply to choose a trustworthy American PCB supplier. Primarily, not even so much having anything against Germany. It's just simply, whenever you're ordering parts, I realize that the more complicated your logistics system, the more chances there are for failure. And that's a truth that's universal for really any system, not just simply logistics. The more complicated any sort of machine or system is in general, however you may apply the word system, the more complicated it is, the more parts there are to it, the more likely it is to fail, right? So I decided to ensure the reliability and stability of the company by sacrificing a little bit more of the profit margin in order to build purely American. And that's not just simply because of American pride. It is also simultaneously because of logistics and the timing it would take to fulfill orders. It's exponentially faster, especially during the COVID era, the post-COVID era, where everything, shipping internationally takes way longer now than it did before. And that was also part of what was holding up orders as well, was that the orders that we did send out. Because during a post-COVID world, everything was haywire, especially when it came to international mail. Something might get stuck at customs for 3-4 weeks, sometimes even 3-4 months. Get lost, With that in mind, the new PCB supplier will be local, or at least domestic. May not be Alaskan, but they will be American. And I imagine they'll need perhaps 30 days to develop and ship our order of U-Rays. And then once those arrive at my lab here in Alaska, I will personally send out the final orders that people have been waiting for. Right, so ETA, 2 months from the time that this email was sent, roughly. And with that in mind, where we are going as a company. Once we finally push out these orders, Wolven Industries is going to move on, diving headfirst into the home security industry. We're going to be developing our own innovational line of products that alert you and authorities when someone is trying to break into your home. That's the next baby step. And it's much less complicated to build those than it is to build the U-Ray. So in other words, this is actually, at scale, this is more like a level 20 project. So in other words, it's like training with weight. The U-Ray was basically, as a physicist and engineer, it's like physical training with weights on. And now I'm going to aim a little bit lower, a little bit easier in technological difficulty and now that I'm at level 40, I'm going to take on a level 20 project and knock that out of the park, or in a way that, biting off a size of the technological plate that I can actually chew. And with that in mind, we're raising funds for it right now. So if you'd like to buy some of our merchandise on the website, that would be greatly appreciated. And 100% of those proceeds will get reinvested into getting this company back on its feet faster. So without further ado, in conclusion, thank you so much for your time and faith in my character. All right, throughout this whole process, none of you lambasted me, at least not to my face. None of you lambasted me. None of you assumed the worst in my character. You didn't call me any names. You knew how hard it's been for me to make it to this point, right? But now I'm here. Now we're here, right? And thanks for your support, because this is hard, right? This is hard. Entrepreneurship of this kind, developing one's own technology, is no joke, right? So I haven't lied to you. I've just been struggling to make the impossible possible, right? And well, now we have finally arrived, right? So thank you. And I mean that. Thank you for not giving up on me, and for not mocking me or doubting me when I've stumbled throughout the process of climbing this mountain and developing as a person, right? Thank you for not giving up on me. And you have my solemn vow that no matter what, I will not give up on myself. We are not moving on to the next product line until the last U-Ray product, the last U-Ray order is fulfilled. It's taken a ridiculous amount of time. I know that some of the people still waiting for them probably don't even really have any demand to use them, but maybe you do, maybe you don't. I mean, it's great technological innovation where you could use it for a lot of things. It's just simply, I understand that there's no way you would maintain the same level of urgency to have it, especially after having waited so long. But it's a matter of principle, or it's a matter of honor. Or there's nothing wrong with having flaws, even if it took 5 years, right? There's nothing wrong with that so much more than it is making sure that everyone who has faith in my character knows that for whatever reason there may be a delay, it's for a legitimate reason, especially as I grow as a character, right? It's not because there was any sort of false advertising or anything like that. This has not been a con. there absolutely have been orders that have been fulfilled. It's just been a very rough start, and I've been bootstrapping 99% of our funding, 99% of it. And you guys follow me on social media. Anyone on my email list undoubtedly have seen me on social media. So it's like you guys know my character. You guys know my heart. Thank you for seeing that and trusting that, and understanding how hard it's been to get to where I am from where I was. Not just from the Chinese wilderness, but also where I was starting off from childhood, right? I understand how hard it is to take a guy like me seriously sometimes, to believe that I really do have noble intentions. And so far, none of you have challenged that. None of you have questioned that, at least not to my face. And I believe you guys because none of you asked for refunds, right? Remember, there have been orders that have been fulfilled. It's just simply none of you that have been waiting so far, you didn't ask for refunds, and you've still been talking to me in the comments, on Skype, online, online in general, and you never criticized me for it. Thank you for having faith that I've been truly trying my best, because I really have been. Thank you.